Do Nick and Leah have some that they can wear?
There's what we only have two.
Okay, got it.
They're both copies, and I'll have to.
Okay.
pass it back and forth. Yeah, that one's gonna be cut.
Okay, perfect. I'm waiting for Summer to tell me if she's coming on. Okay.
The juice drink you have looks really good, whatever that is.
A mixed berry herbal soda.
Yeah, that.
That looks really yummy.
It is. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Was that loud?
No.
It's Ange.
It's just me.
Okay. Can you pay? Summer's messaging you. Okay. Okay, we're gonna get started. So I feel like this was the best book for us to end with. Does everybody agree?
Yes.
Yes. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I said I feel like this was the best book for us to end this season of book club with. But as someone who's practiced in the world of holistic health for over 20 years now, which makes me feel old, vitalism has always been my thing. And I always feel lonely and frustrated because I'm like, if one more person tells me they've spent $8,000 on supplements, I'm going to lose my shit. Right? Like, it just makes me crazy. But it's a culture we live in, right? We live in that culture of take this for that. Or who gets labs back and they're like, you are diabetic. You do have this. You have this. And they put all of that on us. And then that creates a neural pathway of then we walk in to the next practitioner. I have this. I am this. And that's so irritating. And I watch people do it. I watch practitioners unintentionally put that negativity onto their patient all the time. And there's nothing vitalistic about it. We're seeing if Summer's on.
She's not coming.
Okay, she's not coming. Okay. So what I loved about this, I don't know about you guys, but the more that I was reading through it, I feel like every chapter I was like, yes, Nick, yes, yes. And I loved the chapter about biohacking and Mark Hyman. Nothing against Mark Hyman, but who else loved that when he talked about, yes, yes. And I was like, Leah, that was my favorite part of the book. Jonathan, what did you think about that? Because I loved that part of the book.
Make sure he gets the mic.
What?
Anne can't hear if you don't get the mic.
How can you not hear me?
She can hear you.
Oh,
She can't hear Anne.
I was saying, hold on. I was saying I loved the part where Nick was talking about biometrics, labs, and how we are now using them to create a database, and people don't know about it, right? And we now live in a world where it's test, don't guess, lab, 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 lab. Your labs came back. You're deficient in this. We have this. We have this. So instead of you're deficient in this, why are you deficient in this? It's we're going to give you this, right? So there's still nothing root cause or holistic about that. And I loved the fact that he brought that to light and the fact that he didn't demonize all labs, right? It was just helping us see a bigger picture as to what's going on. And for someone who deals in that world, I would love both of your opinions on that.
I was actually at the grocery store shopping while listening to that chapter. So my mind's kind of like spinning in 5 different directions at the same time. I think it's interesting that like Function Health is a data company first. Like they are the second data company first. They're not a healthcare company, and a lot of people kind of use that. And at the end of the day, like, data is going to be used for something, right? And they have tons of money invested in the company behind the scenes. And then I think data is also only as good as those who can interpret it. So all this extra data, who's interpreting it, and what are you going to do with that data?
Mine is always how often is that data shifting? So by the time you get your labs back, how much have you already shifted, right? So I'm always questioning that. I would love for you to answer that. I want her opinion. So, Jonathan's got it.
So, I mean, I think our bodies are constantly changing every second. You're always going to have a different reading. So, I mean, in my practice, I try to focus on the pillars of health.
Yes.
Where looking at the nutrition, the sleep, stress and relationships, and bowel habits. So that's where I like to start first. I do think that testing, there comes a time that testing is important. And, so you look at the food and be like, change here? Is there anything we can change? Not, they feel like they're already doing everything right. Well, then I mean, I do think testing is important to get to the bottom of it because people are supplement happy. They want to take, they're always out there asking, what can I take for this? And it's like, well, what are you doing? What are your symptoms? And so I guess long story short, I would like to work on the foundation first. And then go from there.
Absolutely. I asked her because I have a lot of respect for her as a practitioner.
Less is more. I mean,
Mhm.
people are wanting to get crazy with probiotics and all this other stuff, supplement wise, but it's like you could be putting some probiotics in your body and harming yourself more by, adding something and you already have and causing overgrowth. So I feel like, less is more.
Absolutely. Thank you. I love the way you practice, which is why I asked you. So, does anybody have any opinions or thoughts around that?
Can you hear me now?
No, she's shaking her head no. We can just pass this one around.
Yeah, we're gonna. I think we're good.
Okay. Who would like the mic? Because I'm going to pass it. Okay. Jonathan.
I think I work with a lot of engineers in Columbus because I work with Cummins as well. And so they're very data-driven individuals. And I think for a lot of times with those people, they need something that they can look at to say, this is a quantifiable metric that I can assess and then actually do some groundwork retraining their system or groundwork retraining their gut or whatever, and then see quantifiable metrics as like why this is going to work over time. Because they want data, they want to know why, they want to see the research, they want to see the long-term outcome for them too. And I think there is something to say, like to support individuals with having something that they can track for themselves, even if it's just like a qualitative metric of like, what is your symptom score for today whenever you first wake up in the morning for a pain or something.
I like what he's saying about tracking how you're feeling because I use the medical systems questionnaire in my practice as well to get a baseline of it goes through all the body systems and what kind of symptoms they're having. And then as we're working on their health, we can see, how things have changed over time.
Okay. More thoughts before we move to the next topic. Now, Ken. You always have a thought.
I'll say I resonate with John as one of those engineers. It's great to have data points, right? But I think one of the things that maybe isn't recognized well enough is that there's lots of different ways to get that data, whether we're talking about symptoms or, health scores, or there's a lot of ways to get windows into what's going on. But as issues, problems are more complex, then getting a deeper dive, a deeper window can sometimes be very beneficial. But like you said, because we're changing constantly, it's really difficult to lean on a one-time blood draw, or a urinalysis or whatever that is, without doing that many times to track and to get a holistic picture. And then that becomes very expensive. So we need to keep that in perspective, I think, as practitioners.
I knew you.
Feeling and going through is more important. You have to ask them every time they come in, what's changed, what's different, have you done anything different? That's how we do it in Chinese medicine and how it should be approached, because the labs do matter to some degree, but just because somebody walks in my office and says they're diabetic, that doesn't mean I'm going to treat them based on their labs.
And just a note, you guys we have some people who are online. They cannot hear if you don't have the microphone. And we are recording this so that if people missed it and they want, like Summer can't come and she can come and watch this later. So just so you know, it's not, it's just for the community, but also for our contingent who couldn't come in person and are participating online. All right. Adaya, okay.
Are we gonna go to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dropped them on my way.
You could have, yeah. Yeah. what you
You
get?
can respond to the same. Yeah, I just want to say thanks so much for coming, first of all. And it's an honor to be able to sit with people who read the book because we don't, if you're curious in this matter, we don't see you just like as readers. It's together we're reformers, reformers of our own health, reformers of our family's health, our community. And in my work in policy, you know, local control is primary in the biblical sense. Obviously, freedom is with local control starts with yourself and with your family, and then it goes out from there. And it does trickle down to the cultural shift, to what's going to happen in our communities and Maha, so to speak. You know, if we're looking at what's happening in America, it's you and I get to decide what norms we embrace for future generations. And it's an honor to be a part of anything that Karen is leading. She's been a fellow vitalist for over a decade in Nick and I's lives, and just awesome to partner with her. And she's been a super special part of my life with my journey. If some of you, I don't know how much you gleaned from the book, but podcasts we've done on the book and whatnot. With 2021 to 2023, I had a really extended second trimester loss, and she never gave up on me. She never thought, oh, your body's broken, like you have to go get a DNC, you have to disrupt, but just got me to the next right person, helped be a woman who would champion me. And then she had the pleasure of giving me a facial the day before my rainbow baby was born. So like 2 years later, my rainbow baby MJ was born on the year mark to the day of when Ruth finally passed. You know, at Ruth she was 25 weeks when she passed, but she had passed in my body at 15 weeks. And so we had walked through that and then had a surprise pregnancy. And a year to the day of Ruth passing, MJ was born, and I got a facial from Karen the night before. So
And I gave her my fork.
yes. So, and because we had that amazing, relaxing day, then my best friend from South Carolina got to be in town for the birth. So it's just like little special connections with Karen and knowing what an amazing earth angel she is, and that we get to do community together. So thanks for coming and showing up and for commenting on the book and telling us. I guess I'm just even eager to hear what principles y'all got out of the book. Like, do you know what the principles are now that you read it? This isn't a pop quiz, but so yes, and I'll let Nick respond to some of what was being said because he's the practitioner in the author relationship. So I'll pass it off. But thank you guys so much for coming, and thank you, Karen, for setting this up.
So the principles are just kidding. Just, get you off the hook there. Less is more. So there's a comment, less is more. And you'll find in the book the principle of addition by subtraction, that the body's designed to heal. So why are we looking to add to it as opposed to remove from it? What's interfering with the body's ability to heal? That's been a core message for over a decade. But what do we find most of the time is that we're always looking to add more, whether it's a drug or whether it's some supplement, and it becomes very reductionistic very quickly when we start from that approach, because more data is not bad in and of itself. It's what then we do with it. It then becomes the problem. It's what we do with it, because if we take that data and we say, okay, your gut is a mess or your labs are off, and now the next step needs to be 17 supplements for this, restorative pathway. Well, now the nervous system is now having to interpret all of these new things. You've got too many variables. And I think in all forms of healthcare, we need to look and see, okay, these different variables that we're adding, if we're from a scientific method, even adding additional variables is going to complicate the entire situation here. I was just in the hospital with it was my pastor. He's in the hospital and he had a massive heart attack, and he was in emergency care, and his kidneys shut down, and his kidneys were in shock. And that's the reason why his kidneys shut down. And the doctor came in and asked the question, "Are you nauseous?" And his response was, "Not really, but sometimes when I take my medications, I get a little nauseous. But this is just like when I take my supplements. I get a little nauseous when I take my supplements." And the doctor said, "Well, then we need to put you on anti-nausea." And he said, "I don't want to be on an anti-nausea. I'm already on 30 medications now," which he was on 0 before. Now he's on 30 medications. And she says, "Well, you need to be on this anti-nausea. We don't want you to be nauseous." And they're fighting back and forth. I'm witness to this. I'm sitting there as a family friend, fly on the wall, just happen to witness all this, trying to keep my mouth shut because I'm getting all fired up. And I'm ready to like unstrap him to all his stuff and wheel him out of there because I'm like, we got to get you out of here. You're in danger here. These are not partners for your vitality. And that's the issue, is that we need to partner with people who see the body as, number one, capable of healing. And the target is reclaiming vitality. The target is increasing vitality from the inside out. The target is not, as a reductionist standpoint, to play whack-a-mole healthcare, whether it's with a drug or a supplement or whatever. That's a never-ending game, and the game ends with it get faster and faster and faster. If you ever played whack-a-mole, the arcade game, you can tell I have kids, boys specifically, but like the game ends with like you're stressed out because all the lights and the things and they're popping up, and that's hospitals. That's hospitals. And so they're fighting back and forth, and she sends in the psychiatrist as person 2 to come in to convince him that he's not fit to make his own medical decisions and needs to be on the anti-nausea. And he's perfectly in his right mind, by the way. He didn't want to take the anti-nausea. By the way, the anti-nausea has a side effect of arrhythmia. He was already experiencing arrhythmia beforehand. Another doctor comes in and now gets knee to knee with him to try to convince him. He says, "It's no longer about your nausea. It's about this being a therapeutic and diagnostic procedure of you taking the anti-nausea. We want to see how your kidneys respond to this." To which he declines once more. But this is the allopathic model that we're trying to, help people understand that might be an extreme. But when the doctor was in there, I simply asked finally, because I couldn't hold it together anymore. I said, "Do you think that his kidneys shutting down have anything to do with the fact he went on 0 medications and now is on 30, and now his creatinine is going up, now his kidneys are trying to keep up?" And she looked at me, she said, "Absolutely not. The kidney's job are to filter toxins. And the medical world does not look at toxicity from medications whatsoever. They don't even acknowledge that that's even a consideration." But I mean, end of the story ends well. He's doing great. He's recovering. He's one by one getting off of these medications. But he's awakened to know now that when you partner with somebody for your health, they have to have the right target in mind. And if the target is to add medications to reduce symptoms so the numbers look good on blood work or numbers look good on even functional testing, then that's not vitality. That's not even really healthcare. That's playing data-driven science, and it's allopathy or allopathic medicine. So I'm thankful that to be in this group where like vitalism is a common word and I don't have to define it for you. That's nice to be in a group like this. But we have such a long way to go. And with Maha, I was just at a conference. I literally got off the plane at 2:00 in the morning last night, or got home at 2:00 in the morning, got off the plane at 1:00. And so I could be here with y'all. Yeah. I wanted to. I was excited to be here, but
I thought you got home fast.
Right.
I realized it was because of the time change.
I
My phone was like, "Wow, you landed 20 minutes ago and you're already on."
I didn't want to
It
throw
was
you
the
on.
time change.
Yeah, I didn't want to throw you under the bus, but we had a little mishap with our scheduling. But there's comments made. There's 600 practitioners there, all in the natural health chiropractic world, and there's a comment made of like, "Aren't you so thankful that we finally arrived?" And he didn't say it like that, but that was the context. Like we've arrived, and I'm thinking, what? Well, we've arrived? We have not, or we have. This is a false summit. We do these mountain experiences where we do ultra marathons. We're not ultra marathon people, but it challenges our brain and makes us work towards something. So we do these events, and we did this one that it was the vertical height of Mount Everest, that you would climb one mountain 13 times and it would be the equivalent of Mount Everest. For some reason, we thought it would be a good idea to sign up for this thing. So we did it. And the very first one that the very first run, so it was on a ski slope, right? And so you get up, get to the top, and then take a gondola down, and then you make the turn at the bottom and you go back up again. You do it 13 times. And I remember Lee and I were hiking this, and we started off at a good pace, you know, and we're getting real tired. And it was at this one point where we're looking up and we're like, okay, we're almost to that point up there. And that's got to be more than halfway, because we were just exhausted. And this is round 1 of 13. And we get up there, and I remember seeing this sign that says, you are at 500 feet now, or here, or something like that. And it was like 2,500 feet each run. And both of us were like, oh crap. You know, this is like, we're 1/5 of the way of 13 of these. And we're both like, my calves are sore. Like my back kind of is like tired. And that's a fall summit. So that was like deflating to know that we're going there and we're almost there and we're hopefully halfway to be 1/5. And all of a sudden to see that sign, it's like, oh no, we're screwed basically with this thing. That's a false summit. I feel like we're at a false summit right now.
There, you are screwed. There's the point. The point
Well-
is if you make yourself believe that that is the summit and you get that in your psyche, then it's discouraging.
Yeah, you want to turn back. They had like massage therapists at the bottom. You could hear the music. There was food trucks down there that were like really good food. You would like it. And every time you go down this gondola, you're staring, you know, and the music is getting louder and louder and louder. And it's like this point of decision. Do I actually want to keep doing this? And then like, why am I doing this, by the way? What's the real like impetus behind this whole thing? But someone said, you can't think about that. You have to make the turn and just start going back up. And this idea of where we are right now, I feel like, and you say it really well, I feel like we're just getting started, that there's awakening happening with vitalism, with people understanding vitalistic principles, that the body's designed to heal. Yes, it can be devitalized, but it can actually be revitalized from the inside out if we do the things necessary and have that as the target. Building health from the inside out, building vitality. And the more that we do less and take a step back and watch the body heal, now it doesn't mean we don't go to people and we don't do things. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is that when we remove interference to the nervous system, allow the gut and the hormones to start working for themselves again, that's when we see the quote unquote miracles. We don't even call them miracles. It's the body returning to normalcy again. Healing is the normal state of the body. It's the normal state. So why is it a miracle that then it does that? It's not a miracle. That's just, it's doing its job again. It's working again. And that can be frustrating for somebody who's actually not there right now. Like they're not feeling good, or they're hurting, or they're struggling. But like, you got to maintain hope right now. You got to maintain that idea that if you cut your own leg right now, it self-heals and self-resolves. You don't think about that doing that. It didn't need anything for it to do that. It didn't need Neosporin to heal. It didn't even need a Band-Aid to heal. Most of those things are going to slow down the healing process anyway. So remove the interference, let your body heal just like that cut on your leg. And so if we continue to look at the body in that way, and more of maybe a deductionist standpoint or a vitalistic standpoint, or just the simplicity of the body can do what it's supposed to do as long as we get out of the way, our nervous system, our mind is going to start being coherent to that. It's going to start vibrating at those same types of frequencies, those energies, to say, okay, we got this, we can do this, because now we're partnered together in healing, and you're not trying to trick me or biohack your way into doing it. In addition to that.
Yeah, and I don't know, Karen, or any of y'all, if you have a direction you want to go, but I'll just share one more thing in relation to the Fall Summit of where we are as Indiana, as a nation, with this cultural shift, you know, of more options in our healthcare, of a recognition that there's more than one way, a recognition that there is hope. And I think that it's important to recognize that for the past 40 years, we've been underwater as it relates to health freedom, as it relates to standard of care being the only acceptable way. I mean, you even go to one of your friends and say, I'm going to decline cancer treatment. That friend now sees you as reckless, Like, what are you, so, you know, it's just, that has been our reality for the past 40 plus years, that there's a single standard of care and a single way. And we've been underwater with that. And we're just now in 2026, our heads above water at, I would say, the 5-yard line, not the goal line. You know, we have 95 yards to go. And that's okay, because once the veil is torn, once the light is let out, it can't be put back in. And that's ours to carry, because the next generation and the next generation, we don't want history to constantly just be repeating itself, but to grow on things, to shift norms, to teach our kids that anything can heal. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that I recognize coming out of this, you know, desiring for people to have the paradigm shift, to not be trapped anymore, is when you grow up, or you teach your kids, or you train your own mind with every next health decision, that anything can heal, nothing is fixed, you're in a completely different position. Right after our pastor was triaged for his heart attack, and they said, oh, your heart's at 10% function, your kidneys are at 0 function, you know, all of this stuff was just within triage in the emergency room. They're already diagnosing, they're already putting labels on. And I don't even think I told you this, Nick, but 2 weeks later, one of our state directors in North Dakota had almost the exact same thing happened. Goes in the emergency room, they automatically label, your heart is at 10% function, we're putting you on a transplant list. And it's like, but let's wait a minute. I've only been here for 30 minutes. Let's see what heart function is in 2 hours, in 2 days, in 2 weeks, 2 months. Like, heart function isn't fixed. And so recognizing that we have a long way to go with the cultural shift, but things like this, gatherings like this, are exactly how that shift happens, is exciting. And when we wrote the book was long before we started the writing process, was before Maha. You know, it was actually right after MJ was born. So May of 2023, Nick had been asking me for years, let's write a book. And he said, you know what, you're going to be at home with a baby the next 6 months. This is a perfect time to be creative, to, you know, to use all the inspiration of what we've journeyed over the past 2 years. And I was like, you're right, this will be good. You know what, sit in a recliner and write. Didn't really work that way. I mean, that started in May 2023 and we published in January. So a little bit of a longer process. But one of our original impetus was understanding that even the least of these, even the most disenfranchised, can heal in an immersion experience, in a vitalistic environment. And so one of the most beautiful examples I have of that is our foster son, Lad. He came to us with a type 2 diabetes diagnosis, glaucoma. He had trouble sleeping, severe behavioral issues, didn't like men, couldn't, you know, wouldn't take to them without behavior issues. And within months of being in our home with chiropractic care, with sunlight during the day, with a natural rhythm and organic foods, this little guy was deflamed. I mean, his skin no longer looked like it was going to pop. His glaucoma, his type 2 diabetes, all of that was lifted within months of a 2-year-old it being in a home that just believed he could heal. And I always say my prayer is that eventually one county across the US will give us a foster care system to show what Vitality can do. What better population just to believe in them and just to give them hope and love on them. They're most disenfranchised, and to show, look, if this population can heal, anyone can, you know. And so, and kids heal fast. It'll be a great beta test, right? But in the meantime, we wrote the book, and people can have this knowledge for themselves and share it with their friends and family, and have the reference point to look at thoughts, trauma, toxin instead of a diagnosis. Because if we lean on a diagnosis to explain why we are experiencing our symptoms, we cut off inquiry, and it's an amazing opportunity loss. I mean, we completely void the spiritual, emotional if you're not looking at thoughts and traumas. You know what I mean? If you're only looking at the physical aspect, then we void the opportunity to heal the whole person. So
Yeah. I remember Number one, the nervous system can't heal when it's trying to fight for safety. So in these situations with Lad, our foster child, as an example, his nervous system was fight or flight to the max. I mean, when we found him at the agency, his core temperature was so low. He was extremely inflamed. Like his skin looked like if you poked him with a needle that it would pop. I mean, that's how tight his skin was because he was so stinking inflamed, left out in the cold and rain, and just a really bad situation. All of these diagnoses, glaucoma, one of them, type 2 diabetes. And I thought, come into the Wilson house and you're going to heal, buddy. And just in a few, won't take long. And it was just like, after seeing so many patients over the years, just like, I can't wait to have an immersion. I've never brought them home with me. This is going to be great. And healing doesn't always happen like that, right? So at first I couldn't even adjust him or put my hands on him because he didn't want men to be in his life, or he had abuse with men specifically. So I couldn't be around hardly. And then over time, slowly kind of just at least allowed me to adjust him, and I would allow proximity. But I remember coming home from work one night from the office, and it was just a really long day. And I remember sitting in my driveway, not getting out of my Acadia at the time. I'm like, I just need to decompress for a second because it's a long day and I'm about to go into an absolute chaos with a little child who hate would be strong, but he really doesn't like me yet. And this isn't going as well as I thought it would. And I look out my window and I see him standing on the steps. I'm like, I gotta get out, I guess, now since he sees me. But I got out. And slowly, and all of a sudden, I look over at him, and all of a sudden, he's got this big old smile on his face. It's like a clown smile, like with the way he smiled. It was his whole face that smiled. It wasn't just his lips. But and he comes running up to me, and he jumps into my arms, and I'm hugging him. I'm like, "You're like the same kid? Is this really happening right now?" I'm looking around, it's can we get a video of this or something? This is amazing. Because healing doesn't always happen the way we expect it to. It's not the same, it's not linear, right? But the body's designed to heal. Give it the right circumstances, and the body can heal. And our pastor, when they found out that his insurance was good, they woke him up in the middle of the night to do all these tests. And he described to me, he said, there's a line of people out the door waiting to do these tests. And he was asking me, he's like, do you think I really need a colonoscopy at 2 a.m.? I'm like, you don't need a colonoscopy at all, but not at 2 a.m. The amount of things that were done that were the opposite, the antithesis of a healing environment. We took the food out of his room. We can't eat the food. I went down, I haven't been in the hospital in a while, so I went down to the cafeteria. I'm just looking around. I'm like, let's do some investigation here. And I'm looking, I'm like, it's inedible. There's nothing edible down here. There's nothing life-giving, nutrient-rich. There's nothing that would actually support vitality. It's all going to add a variable of interference here. And so we're shipping in food to him, things that he can actually eat, and juices and stuff like that. And just get out of here as soon as possible so that you can actually start healing. And sure enough, they said his kidneys were completely shot, that he was going to need a double transplant, kidney and heart, and he needed to get on the list. And his heart is back to functioning normal again. He's preaching this morning, right now. He just got done preaching, which I told him he shouldn't do that, but couldn't help it. Kidneys back to life, functioning again. If we would have said, yes, go ahead and do the double transplant and go ahead and do it right then and there, he would have had a double transplant and no opportunity for vitality, no opportunity for healing again. But now he's got opportunity, and faith gets restored when you take time to do that. Faith in your body's ability to heal. And how many people are getting robbed from the faith of their body's ability to heal because they just jump to the next treatment? And unfortunately, that's when your faith gets robbed from your body's ability to heal, that transcends generationally. Because now how are you teaching? How are you communicating? How are you raising up your kids? At the first sign of the fever, what are you doing? Then when there's vomiting, what are you doing? When there's a runny nose, this goes on generationally if we don't break it. And it's why we wrote the book, is for a paradigm shift to happen, not just a this is a protocol for vitality. We wrote it for a paradigm shift. We've seen it. So when the paradigm shift happens, that's when all of a sudden you raise your kids differently. That's when you communicate differently. That's when you make decisions differently from an inside out perspective instead of an outside in perspective. It's a completely different paradigm. So where do we go from here?
Steph just raised her hand.
So I feel like I ask the same question every book club. But I'm a chaplain and I serve 2 nursing homes as a chaplain. And I serve some other companies that have employees that are a lower socioeconomic level. So we know that most of us sitting in this room understand what your book is describing. Kendra and I were just talking about on the way here. I'm one tiny, teeny little voice. How do I make an impact? How do I tell the nurses and the residents that are in a nursing home to read a book like this and understand? Because what I see weekly in these nursing homes is medications being shoved down the residents' throats. They have no choice. They have no voice. Some of the other organizations that I serve, people that have health issues, but because they have insurance, they can't afford to go to a holistic or a functional or an integrative doctor. They can't afford it. So how do we break through that? That's the question. We know it's out there. We know more and more people like you are doing beautiful work, but how do you make it affordable for the guy who's on the lower end of the socioeconomic level? And how do you tell them to combat everything? Like all these nurses that work in these nursing homes, that's what they've been fed their entire career. Some of them have been there 20, 25 years. That's all they do. They dispense medications. And they think that's saving lives because they don't want grandma and grandpa to die on their watch. Because you know what? If somebody dies in a nursing home, the nurses get accused, the nursing home gets sued. So they dispense medications. That's what they do all day long, multiple medications. How do you make a difference?
Do you, what's that? Oh yeah, this fitness plan. Yeah, I do, but do you? Okay. I'm reminded of the story of the old man who's on the beach throwing starfish back in the sea. Y'all have heard this analogy. So he's throwing starfish back in an analogy, and somebody comes up to him and says, "What are you doing? There's like thousands. You're not going to make a difference." And he says, "It made a difference to that one. Made a difference to that one." He just keeps on doing it, even though he can't actually do all of the work to get them all back into the ocean himself. I think about that a lot because even over the past decade, that it seems like a little thing to have these conversations. It seems like a little thing to take the time and recommend a book, or it seems like a little thing to do a podcast, or a little thing to do whatever. Have a conversation with a new mom. It's like a little thing. It's like, man, how can these little things make a big difference? But look at the shift that is happening, though. I started with kind of minimizing, that we've arrived, because I don't believe we have arrived. I don't think we're anywhere close to arrival. But look at the cultural shift that is happening, and it's not just about seed oils, and it's not just about like biohacking. There are more and more, and I've witnessed it. People who are saying, "I just don't trust the pharmaceutical industry at all anymore." What might have been meant for evil, I think, has turned some people to good with COVID, with what happened through COVID. People said, I'm just not going back," which, you can't just run away from the thing that you don't want. You got to have a target in mind of where you are going. So there's a conversation to be had there. However, it's happening. Like, people are waking up, and it's because more and more people are having the starfish conversations. Or as some put it, the light a candle. You don't curse the darkness, you just light a candle one at a time. And that's how you light up a room. If we do that for our own homes, we do that for our own communities. And some of us are in more harsh communities than others. Like if you're in a hospital setting and you're in that nursing home situation, like you see it more than what somebody who's working at Cummins does. Maybe not, but like that's the point, is that you can't be overwhelmed by the darkness. Well, you're going to be overwhelmed by the darkness when you're saturated, but if you can light a candle and you can see that one life change one at a time, it makes such a big difference. And our job is not to say someone else's no for them for affordability. And so that's what we try to emphasize, because when we talk about like regenerative farming or organic food, inevitably in the audience, whenever we talk about these types of healthy behaviors, there's going to be the person who raises their hand and says, I can't afford it. And I don't want to say somebody else's no for them on what they're valuing and what they're investing into, but we're investing with our dollars with every single decision. And the reality is, if we really got granular here, and when I work with people one-on-one, we'll go through this in a sensitive and gentle way of like, where are you putting your money? And most of the time it's a negative investment. It's a ROI of net negative of dollars towards their health and healthcare, whether it's insurance or whether it's what they're eating. And actually they're overspending on what they're eating. And last time I checked, fasting doesn't take a lot of money. Yeah. And so it is within reach, but it's got to be value. It's got to be priority. And if you have the addition by subtraction mentality, then you find out ways that you can actually save. We did the math. I think we put it in the book on just fasting one meal a week, like how much cost savings is just with doing that. And how many of you know we could probably fast one meal, it'd be okay for most people to do that. But the reality is that if we focus on the big thing, it can be overwhelming. But how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. So one person at a time.
And I always have to remind myself in the world that I live in that, especially speaking to lawmakers or those who, I don't care if they end up actually agreeing with me, we just need to move the ball down the field. But it's not our job to convince them of anything. It's our job to shine a light, show the cracks, ask a good question, that we don't have to take it on our shoulders to convince someone to believe us. Like, we simply just have to share and ask good questions. And right now, one of the biggest tricks that is coming down the pike, and it's not fully manifested yet, is personalized medicine. It will be everyone's answer to not doing one size fits all. So we'll do personalized medicine. This is perfect. We'll take your genetic screenings. We'll fix your genes. And it's one of the most highly experimental and fraudulent medical practices there are, but it has a savior-like promise. And it's not my job to convince someone that biopharmaceuticals are bad, but it's my job to say, oh, so their poster child baby KJ, who was quote unquote saved last July and made worldwide headlines and had a Cadillac motorcade to escort him from the hospital. That was an experiment. He's the first one to receive this. That was very experimental. And they're claiming they saved him. And he's still 1 year old. It's just like, so you just like ask good questions. Oh, he's the first one to ever receive this. And this is highly experimental. Let's see what happens. Let's pray for that baby. Like, hopefully it all goes famously. But if we just tell a story, put a little question there, then it allows people to think and to reclaim their own agency, because we are responsible for every decision we make. And until we can recognize that, it's not a very popular thing right now because everyone wants to depend on someone else to fix them, depend on someone else to keep them safe. But the more that we embrace that freedom, the better. And what helps me hover above the chaos and the conflict and feeling alone is something our pastor said really encapsulated it well. I think it was just last week. He said it. It was in 1 Corinthians 15. I'd have to look at the exact scripture, I think 24 to 26, where the verse is. But it talks about in the second coming, he will not come until all authority is brought under his feet. Right now the devil rules and reigns, and slowly the authority, this bucket of authority here, is being brought under his feet. And this bucket here in this bucket here. And right now what we're seeing with the light being shined on pharmaceuticals is pharmakia is being brought back under his feet. And that's the spiritual war we're watching taking place. So it's not on us to convince everyone. It's, you know, it just isn't. Like, we shine a light, we're happy, we're joyful, we have hope in how we live, and we just share with others. And the good news is people want to hear it now. And if they don't, then that's okay, because there's 70% that do. And the polls that happened right before this legislative session, 36 states have their legislative session like at the same time. So what I saw happen was, strategically, there was a poll released in December that said talking about things like vaccines is a losing issue, and if you have a race coming up, you better put that issue down. And so I have the Speaker of the House in Indiana coming to me. Can you answer to this poll? You want me to undo mandates and save Indiana, but what about this poll? You know, there's one side of you that should say, do you care about doing what's right or a poll? But politics is a game, and that poll was a lie. They just did another one. Okay, sessions are all ending. Let's do another poll, but we know the funders of it. So it was a Zogsby. They funded it, spent the $20K to have Zogsby do a legitimate poll. 70% of people care that vaccines are an individual decision. And that was not party lines. That was independent, Republican, Democrat. And people are curious. Our lawmakers are curious. Congress is discouraging and a cesspool. But here in our states where health freedom matters, like, they are curious. Our education that we're doing in our communities is shifting what's allowed to be talked about in the halls of government. And so I'm like very encouraged right now. And we have a lot of work to do, because moms know they have options and they might choose a different option than the standard of care. But now we got to come up behind and say, and that can never be used against them, because that's how we have to provide that cover as a community, but also as a state, that we are never going to weaponize standard of care against a mother when they know they have options. So that's kind of like where we are right now. But I don't want to talk the whole time. I want you to, yeah.
I just wanted to share, Stephanie, as an educator who has been in the trenches working with people who don't necessarily seem like they're listening. They are. They're listening and they hear, and you may not see the evidence of that. And you're just going to have to trust that your light is shining on those people, and that they're hearing what you say, and it's landing where it needs to land. And maybe you're not going to see the germination of those seeds, but it'll come. And if it doesn't, it's okay too.
She cares so much. I know, I get it.
I remember, it's the heart of COVID when I felt so stinking alone. I was on the radio. I almost got kicked off the radio. I was like sounding the alarm. That's when they put a disclaimer on the front of my radio show that the views and opinions shared by Dr. Nick Wilson is not associated with WIBC. I just left it there because I thought it was funny. Like, they're like, we can take it off now. I'm like, no, keep it. I want everyone to know that that was your position. But I felt really alone. And it was before anyone knew. So when I was talking about masks and how germs and viruses really work, and it's here it comes. The next thing is going to be a shot. Like, I was saying these things early on in 2020. My radio show, literally for the next 2 years, was all about COVID and responding to the insanity that was out there. No more about like that. I just had to respond. It was like constant. It was, again, I was playing whack-a-mole with like the reaction, and that got so exhausting. Like, and I remember feeling that, like, am I actually alone? Am I crazy? Am I right? Like, these are the thoughts that I was having. And I felt like I was carrying a big boulder. This is the visual I had in my mind, like a huge boulder on my back. And I was going up a hill, and I was like getting more and more tired as I was going up this hill. And I was in prayer one day, and I felt like it was said that it's not yours to carry. It's not yours to carry. You're trying to do this all on your own. And the visual I had was that boulder that I had on my back. There was a big hand above the boulder that attached to a string that then was attached to the boulder. and just waiting for me to ask to lift the load. And it doesn't have to be ours to carry alone. Like, it's not like the cultural shift and the paradigm shift and like the families waking up and the workplace is changing. Like, it's not ours to carry. Light a candle within ourselves, maintain joy and peace and right thinking, and continue to move forward. We cannot sacrifice our own individual health because we're so stressed about the world not changing. Like, I've lived it, I've walked it. I felt like I almost sacrificed my own health because of it, and praise God that I don't have that anymore. Right? It's not mine to carry. It doesn't mean I don't go back to that and be like, oh, this is horrible. How can we fix this? I'm a fixer by nature. But sometimes it's too big for us to fix, and all we have to do is do our best, and keep our families vital and healthy. Yep.
So hopefully I heard you well in the book, but there were two things you said that really impacted me. And that was that we have to be in the right mind. And what you're talking about right there is really what you're saying. And you can't do everything all at once. And you said in the book, if you're exercising and you're eating right and you're doing everything right, but your mind isn't the right place, it's worthless. And I think that's very important. And I think to what you said, you know, when it comes to working with other people, we give them what we can give them. What can they do without the money? So what's one thing they can do? Well, they can sleep. Let's get some sleep in there. Or, you know, okay, you can't add a whole new diet yet, but can you do this? And I think sometimes you said something that made me think that this was your message as well, is that we have to sometimes go in small steps. And we don't like that. We want it all to turn over overnight, but I'm not capable of doing everything overnight. It takes me little steps. And I think that's what we have to focus on, is what can we help them with and what can we get across, and how can we support that? And how do we then add the next step and the next step with people? Because we can't do it all at once, and we can't get them to do it all at once, and we'll overwhelm them if we do. And I feel like that was a really profound message that I took from the book.
Are you going to kill me if I ask you to speak? No. I'm looking at an amazing girl behind you, but she's introverted. But I asked her to be here to share some of her story.
Oh, no, I didn't. I thought she was going to talk about it.
She deceived me. I can relate to this a lot. I've lost all faith in the medical community for the most part. I also, from a nervous standpoint, my nervous system shot. I was in an abusive relationship for 6.5 years. That man worked for the pharma industry. He marketed Ozempic and all those fun drugs. So I got to kind of see it firsthand. I saw the thousands, millions of dollars they spent. I ended up leaving, trying to fix my own health. I went to a functional medicine practice, which I do not recommend. In going through with that, I spent thousands of dollars, around 10 grand, to just get thrown supplements. I had a plastic container of supplements. Took me weeks to find a way to organize these supplements, find a way to take these supplements where I weren't carrying them everywhere I go. Shortly after, that's when I met Karen, as I was just fed up with the process. She was an ex-ER doctor. Bedside manner was the same, so I could relate to what he was saying about his pastor in the hospital. It was just take this, do this, a number of labs just thrown at me, overwhelming. She called me 2 days before Christmas to tell me I had Lyme disease. Merry Christmas to me. It was just, I can relate to the whole summit. The practice is, getting yourself up the summit and, through everything going on, which the practice itself didn't make sense. So I'm kind of back to square one. Don't know where to go from here. I'm currently not working, so I can relate to the cost side of things, to the trying to eat organic, trying to eat healthy foods, trying to go to the regenerative side of things. What else do you want me to share? Mhm.
right.
Go back and forth. The sound is only going through the. Okay, got it. This is we have a big active member of IHL on the computer right now. So people, but because your story is one of so many, right? Which is where people will say, Karen, why do you hate supplements? Why do you hate function? And I'm like, I don't at all. I despise when someone tells you that that's your only answer, right? So you are going to hear my wrath and you're going to hear me complain. And it's usually Jonathan getting a voicemail of me losing it, right? Because I don't hold anything in and I've got to just get it out. And you are one of so many people that I feel like, well, that we see on a regular basis. A lady messaged me today on my way here. On my way here, I got a message of, I was just in the hospital. I went to this functional medicine place. They want to put me on all these supplements for my thyroid, right? And I'm like, okay, I don't know you, right? And I don't know anything about your health, right? I don't know anything about what got you there. And I don't know what type of care you're expecting. Because before everybody got here, I was just saying to Nick and Leah, and I think that's a big part of him saying we're just at this first summit, right? Because people don't even know what type of care they have access to. You know, I'm listening to you, Steph, and in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, start a book club at the nursing homes, right? You know, start a book club with the nurses my mom was in one, right? So my mom would have loved to have read that. You know, she would have loved it. So there's all these little ways, or like Kara comes to a lot of them, they're always there. Teach people. Every flipping class I teach is so intentional and it's seasonal. So when people are like, I missed your class, when is it? I'm like, next year, right? Because I'm teaching you how to do your own thing within the seasons because it's free and then you're doing it and someone else isn't telling you to do it. You're doing it, right? And so it's just your story. Just when you left, I was fired up. All of them had to hear it all weekend long because I lost my mind. But there again, you're one of so many. So I don't want you to be quiet about it, right? People need to be able to understand that not all functional medicine, like Miss Alyssa, is like that. Right? Not every practitioner, but we need to learn how to ask the questions as the patient. That's why in Hindi Holistic Living, you guys all probably see it, seeking a functional medicine practitioner. And I'm like, okay, but did you ask what type of care you are expecting? People don't, and I do that on purpose because people don't know to ask, and then they end up like you over and over and over again. And it's so frustrating. So we need you speaking your truth. We need you speaking up, not only so you're a leader in helping others not end up like you, but the more you speak, you just may find the perfect practitioner for you who is going to want to put that agency back in you. Like when I met her, she's like, you didn't really tell me what to do, right? And I'm like, because I don't need to be another person telling you what to do. I can guide you with things that you can do, right? But I just am excited that you shared that because it's just important for people to be able to understand that vitality is the place where we need to go with it. Okay, who has anything to say about it? Let's ask Leah if that's smart. It could be. I didn't know if it could be Slater.
I just had a. Oh, okay. I had a question about the resources shared in the book. Is there I couldn't find where to find the list of the vaccine stuff you talked about in that chapter or some of the other resources because I did it on audiobook, so I didn't have the book in front of me.
So the Vaccine Decision is the book that it refers to in chapter 4, which you can get on Amazon, the Vaccine Decision. I co-authored that with our policy director, Valerie Borek. And then reclaimvitality.com.
Well, she won't. Can I just,
Yeah.
a vaccine decision is like an encyclopedia for vaccines. It's incredible. They just released it. She's going to be humble about it. It is incredible, the resource. And if you just go in the first part of it, has every vaccine and
The table of contents, you mean?
table of contents is what I'm trying to say. Table of contents, and every vaccine has a story, and it goes through the history of the story of why it got developed, what it actually is, what's in it, and each one. So someone could take that and say, I want to know about this one, whether it's chicken pox or whether it's DPT, whatever it is, tetanus, whatever, and really look and see what is the actual story here. Polio being a big one. That's what do people say when you talk about vaccines? Well, what about polio? If you don't do this, you're going to bring back these diseases that we've eradicated. So
What about the resources like on the audiobooks, reclaimvitality.com, right?
yeah, reclaimvitality.com. You should see. So if you have a specific resource you're looking for that's not on there, let us know, obviously. But reclaimvitality.com should have any of the resources that you're looking for.
And we have books here today too, if you want to see the physical copy and if you want to buy one or buy one for a friend. And the reason why we included polio and measles in the vaccine decision chapter of Reclaim Vitality was because those are used over and over and over again to try to catch you off guard that we all have to support this because of the greater good. And I mean, we're seeing it right now with measles outbreak. Measles is identified by the WEF and the WHO as the canary in the coal mine, that we will watch measles outbreaks to identify low vaccine uptake and attack it from that standpoint. So yeah, that book is there. And then I feel like I had another resource. Maybe not. Okay.
Mother's Guide.
She has done decades of research on all vaccines. So look up Dr. Sherry Tenpenny.
She was one of my original teachers. Adore her.
She's amazing. Yeah.
This specific book was meant to give you your agency to make your
Mhm.
not to tell you what to do bad. But it's big love. But you don't feel like what were the factors that were considered when even bringing this product to market and then putting it on the childhood schedule? So if you as a person understand that with chickenpox, they were considering the loss of income of 2 weeks for a mother is why it was put on the schedule, then you can decide, is the loss of income of 2 weeks worth it to me to suppress symptoms of chickenpox? You know what I mean? So it's like, this book is not meant to be comprehensive. It's not everything you could ever know about a given shot, but it's meant to tell you the stories that show you the foundation of it so you can make your own decision.
Yeah, I'm coming. Online has a statement too, but no, you're fine. Go ahead and then we'll go to that.
Kind of going back to what she said, I'm a nurse. I worked bedside for a long time now. I probably couldn't do bedside nursing anymore, knowing what I know now. So I just do inpatient chart reviewing. And that's an eye-opening experience. It's terrible. Just reading these records. But to go back what she said, I drank the Kool-Aid, vaccinated all my kids. My youngest is vaccine injured, and although they say that's not a thing. But the seed was planted in my oldest, and he's got 2 babies, and they are not vaccinated. So I think, and everybody I tell, I'm just like, don't take another vaccine. And sometimes they're like, well, you're a nurse. And I'm like, yeah, don't take another vaccine. Cause I feel like if I can make a little step, now my son's children aren't vaccinated, and maybe, it'll just continually to roll. And they're so healthy. And it's like, they don't go to the pediatrician. The thing I was going to ask though, you is when my granddaughter was born, they didn't do the vaccines in the hospital, treated terribly by the on-site pediatrician. She was terrible to them and said that they wouldn't see her daughter unless she got the vaccine. He called me. He's like, "Can you call and try to find a vaccine for a doctor that would see Eden for not having the vaccine?" I called 5. All of them said we won't see her unless she's been vaccinated. And I'm like, as a nurse, I'm like, is there some point where that's like almost medical discrimination? And like, there's still an issue. Like, there's still issues where mothers can't find a pediatrician that will see their child without a vaccine. And I talked to a guy that works for the Attorney General's office. He was at the state fair, and I asked him about it. He's like, you need to call and report it to the Attorney General's office whenever they say that they won't see them because of the vaccine injury. I didn't know it then. It's been like, she'll be 3 in May, but because he's like, we control the licensures of doctors. But I'm like, I just wondered if that was an avenue for people to take, like if they are denied, being seen, if that should be something that they should refile with the Attorney General. Maybe they'd get enough that they look into that. I never have put enough, like filed a claim or whatever complaint, but I don't know. But they found a pediatrician that they don't push. He doesn't. He's like, it's whatever you want to do. But those are rare. Those are few and far between. And I mean, it's a drive for them to go. But I think he only sees them every like 6 months, just check their weight and their growth. But they never go to the doctor because they don't need to, because they're healthy, no allergies. So I was just curious. I mean, I just think that sometimes we can start small, even in our own families, like I did with my son. And he's very and he's a firefighter and an EMT, and he's never going to vaccinate his children. And then I'm like, just make sure that you know that they cannot force you to get vaccines for your kids to go to school. Like I keep telling them that, like, they're going to send letters and they're going to do all this stuff, but they can't force you to vaccinate for them to go to school. So I just feel like you said, we're still got a little bit to go as far as the medical freedom, as far as vaccinating our children. So
mothers will say, I never knew I could tell my doctor I didn't want the ones that she needed at 3 months. This is what little Susie's getting. She's 3 months today. I didn't know I could say no. It's like, whoa, this is how off the rails we've gotten, is we don't know we can say no to our doctor. But reporting it to the AG will raise the awareness of the issue. We got it changed in Florida this year. And last year when we brought it to the Florida General Assembly, they were like, you guys are wrong. So we sent out an email that said, please report if you've ever been kicked out of an office because of vaccine status. And overnight, I think we had like 600 Florida residents who bothered to share their story with us. So we printed them all out and took them in and said, look, so we got the law change this year. But I think without an active policy that the medical industrial complex protects its own, and that the AAP and the licensures and all that are just going to say, like, absolutely, it's for the greater good. You have to stay compliant for reimbursement rates. But yes, it is crazy. And I had a dear friend that was in our lives for several years, and then she had a baby. And then 6 months into her first baby, she looked at me and she was like, I don't want to go back to the pediatrician. I said, why not? She said, I don't want any more vaccines. And I said, okay. And she said, do I have to go back? And I said, why would you? And she was like, well, I don't want the vaccines, so why would I go back? And I said, yeah, why would you? And she said, so I just stop. And I said, yeah, absolutely. People don't need a pediatrician. Like, I don't have anyone weigh or measure my kids except for myself. And yeah, you don't need a pediatrician. And hopefully it'll become an outdated practice. Other countries don't have that as a specialty. They don't have pediatricians as specialties in other countries. And the other part of that is it's just like perpetuates that reductionist thinking. Like, going into the lion's den and having to oppose the reductionist thinking is one of the biggest areas of danger you could be, because they're the largest reporters to the state that this mom is non-compliant. But anyway.
Is this same topic or different? Same topic. Okay. Is that okay? Yeah, thanks.
I just wanted to add on to that I think the discussion needs to start around informing parents of their actual rights, because we've been fired from multiple pediatricians over the years. Now my kids are teenagers now. They would see a family medicine if we went to a family medicine, but we don't have a doctor. So when an emergency happens, we go to the urgent care. Actually, what happens is I call my dad because he's a former paramedic, and I go, do we need to go, or can I do stitches at home? Which sounds medically irresponsible, but you can learn to do stitches at home, right? You can buy a kit on Amazon. I'm just saying. I grew up in the medical system. My grandparents were in the medical system. My grandfather taught nursing, and he would tell his students, close your book. I have 2 important things. Write this down. The number 1 most important thing you need to learn out of this class is your patient's body hasn't read that textbook. The number 2 most important thing you need to learn in this class is do not confuse your piece of paper with your patient's experience. So I grew up on the other side of medicine that was looking at what we have is not the right pathway to do this, right? From that, being fired as a patient or being fired as a parent of patients is used as a fear tactic for moms, because your kids are going to go to school and there's the threat of CPS. Our house has dealt with CPS. We're not afraid of CPS. But there's such a climate of fear around parenting as a whole that needs to be dug under and disrupted before we can even have the conversation of you should determine your kids' medical care, because the parents have to feel like they're secure doing that, and they're not going to be threatened for doing what is their God-given right, which is determining the direction for their kids. So.
I think you're absolutely right in that there are still legalities that we're fighting against. And that is the biggest part of the problem. But for me, in dealing with my family's health issues, which I won't go into here, but it was a complete paradigm shift for me to get through my head that doctor works for me. This idea of a doctor firing patients sends me straight into orbit. You work for me, I'm contracting your help because I trust you, right? And your experience. But if you prove otherwise, or we're not getting along, or your bedside manner is not acceptable, you're fired. And finding the right doctor to get to the bottom of my son's issues a number of years ago involved going through 6 different doctors and firing each one of them until I found the right one. And the right ones are out there, and that's the good news, but it can be a real challenge to find them. But again, I think it's empowering for us to shift that view that you're the contractor, I'm the customer, right? And you work for me. And the minute you don't, or the minute you treat me like you have some kind of authority over me, we're done. Now, in parenting, it gets tricky because of the CPS issue, and there are some of these legalities. But I think even a lot of that can be worked around with saying, I'm going to a different doctor. We're not having this conversation. You're not forcing this. I'll go see somebody else. And I don't think they're empowered at that point. I don't know the details of law, but as long as they think I'm just going somewhere else, then they don't have a lot to say. I'll quit.
So I kind of want to reflect on your comment, nurse person over there. I have been shocked at the number of people working in the formal institutions who are nurses and doctors and such, who know everything we talk about, but they are, 1, afraid, or 2, they don't know how to become more helpful in the care of following these things. And I think that's one thing that we could do better at is we should continue to complain about the stupid people, but we could do better at trying to find ways to help bring people to a better space. And I remember when my husband almost died because of a cardiac emergency that wasn't anything to do with his health, but I mean, sort of, that was weird to say. But the dietitian said, I absolutely know that everything we serve in this hospital is terrible. And I said, why don't you fix that? And she said, because the doctors won't let me. And she needs the courage and the support to be able to say, this is not the way we're doing business here. And I think but I've been shocked at how many people that have said to me, I know. And they just don't know what to do or how to go or where to turn. I think we have a lot of work to do with that still too, but we got to give them, Yep. And we have a wonderful director of health in the state of Indiana.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we have a terrible director. The health person here is terrible. He's awful.
Well,
And
we
some
can
of
put,
them, sorry, just because I know you're going to talk about medical kidnapping. Some of them just they quit. They never get an
And then
opportunity.
we lose them.
Well, and then so we got flooded with applications we have a nutrition functional health program, and flooded with applications with nurses and even medical doctors, and they just wanted out. And the problem was, like, I'd sit down with them and they still thought so allopathically that it's like, you have to go back and learn now. Like to untrain this now is so difficult because you're wired to think this way, like this for that. And everything that comes with allopathy and the practice of allopathy, but it's so difficult. So they feel trapped. They really do. And they don't know what to do because the system itself, to change that, is like there's hierarchies and doctors and hospital administrators and just there's so much red tape.
And that's where we can be more helpful, I think.
and yeah, whenever I'm tempted to give up on like fixing the corrupt system, you remember that one of our colleagues, Erica, her husband works on the ventilators, and so like he's the one that services all of the hospital equipment to keep people alive in emergency. And he is under these pressures and requirements. And so like, no, we have to fight for good policy to keep good people in situations that trickle down and affect our quality of community. But absolutely, it is I'll just say one thing. I hate talking about medical kidnapping. I hate it. It could become my entire life. We get calls all the time and they're horrible. And so I do take CPS very seriously. If there is a threat of CPS, you get an attorney immediately, because we see good, loving parents who haven't seen their kids in 2 years because of medical decisions. So I take it very seriously. And if you ever have a threat, you have to call someone and get reinforcements like right away. Even if it's just like the doctor is mentioning they're going to make a report, you take it seriously. So I don't know if that's what you want me to say, but yeah, we work with moms, good Christian homeschooling, loving moms all the time. So. Yeah.
Well, and some advice here is not to be adversarial. If CPS is, or the threat of, and you can sense that you're ticking off a nurse, typically it's a nurse that starts the process. And it's like, okay, how do I be
deferential
without actually doing it? Right. So you are in the lion's den. You can't get eaten in this moment. Like, just get out of the lion's den and figure it out from there. But you can't go toe to toe in that moment, because then it becomes their own personal, I'm right, you're wrong, and I'm going to prove it to you. And that's when it becomes escalated.
Okay. Talk about the agent, like taking back agency and finding good practitioners, you firing the practitioner, not the other way around. It's funny because one of the things I hear most that always kind of takes me back is, I see you're going to have a baby, right? That the doctor will say, oh, we're going to schedule your delivery. And like, oh, my doctor said I have to have my baby this day. And I'm like, what? This is your baby. What does your doctor have to do with this? And the mom's like, oh, well, I mean, they've been so good to me. They could only want what's best for me. So that's the one. I swear, if we can take back labor and delivery, that the world will think differently about health. And the other part of that is, I don't know if you've read the last chapter in the book. I heard Karen bring it up. If we can take back our confrontation of mortality, we can change how we think about health as a culture. And we're invincible until the day we're not, right? I mean, it's just we are mortals. But so anyway, I feel like there was someone else who wanted to talk.
Did Angela want to say? No, she's on the computer.
So Ange wrote in the comments that the cancer treatment chapter made her so angry. Her mom has had cancer 3 times. She had rectal cancer and they did chemo and radiation. They removed the tumor and reattached her rectum. The cancer came back 2 years ago and the new tumor was literally wrapped around where they did the surgery. They wanted to do chemo and radiation again. She now has a bag because of everything and they can't remove it due to the location with the spine. She was also on an antibiotic for years, capitalized, for acne and started having an autoimmune issue. They thought she had RA. She saw Karen and that was the first thing she said to go off of, and her symptoms going away were almost instant. So it was just a comment. If you want to hear her. Here, give me this. And if you want to say anything about that, you can unmute and talk.
Sure. So I was just, the reason it made me so, I guess, angry, I don't know, for lack of a better word, it also made a lot of sense as I was reading it, because you had talked about ultimately, it reminded me of like the analogy of like dust. When you see a pile of dust and you take a book and you drop it on the dust and the particles go everywhere. So it defeats your whole purpose of dusting that particular spot. So ultimately taking that tumor out, doing the chemo, the radiation, ultimately you're dusting, but then you're throwing a book on it. You're throwing a medicine on it or a chemical on it, and then it kind of just spreads out. It's no different than, spreading a field with, all the pesticides. It just spread. It's not isolated. So that chapter was like, it made sense. And I was like, I see it. That makes sense, because my mom literally was so defeated. She was like, that's literally where they took the tumor out at. Why did it come back in the same spot? And I'm not a doctor. I'm not anything. So I was like, I don't know, Mom. I was like, but here we are. So reading that chapter kind of gave me more insight on that. So I'm kind of excited to go talk to her and like go from there.
So that chapter was the hardest to write because we've lived it over and over and over. So we lost Mom to cancer, Grandma to cancer, Sheila to cancer. Like, I feel like every woman I've loved over a certain age has like lost to cancer. So that was so hard to write because we love these people so much who are being destroyed, So I just want to say that I hope it landed. You have a mom that went through it. But we can look at cancer differently. We're taught to look at it in such a destroyer light instead of what is my body telling me. My body's always doing something smart, just like I was talking about with the genes. Gene mutation. Oh, you mean your body adapted to survive and you want to fix my gene adaptation? So it's like, that's the same thing with cancer. It's like, what is my body telling me I need to remove? And if we continually go to a medical doctor to fix cancer, we neglect the spiritual, emotional elements of healing.
And I was going to say too, in IIN, I went there too, and I don't remember the video. I don't remember what the title of it was, but the story focused on a woman who, I think she was like stage 3 or stage 4 cancer of some kind. And she completely redid her diet, her routines, like and I don't remember what it's called, but she literally cured herself.
Yeah.
What?
Or and if you're talking about in the book, it was Liana, but yeah, there's lots of stories like this. We know a lot of people who have reversed the worst types of cancers when they've given it the right environment. Thoughts, traumas, toxins, what's interfering in that approach, as opposed to cut, poison, burn. Just find it. Now you've got the limited time, and now we're on the clock, and just even that terminology and that phraseology, like, invites nervous system stress. Just think about all the things that we say and do that then would actually work against the mindset of healing. Like, typically people in this scenario, they have 6 to 9 months to live. Are you kidding me? Like, gave them a death sentence. Like, did you learn about the nocebo effect? Like what you actually say has a negative outcome because of you pre-planting seeds of ill health. Like that is so much more powerful than you realize. And what's amazing is that we learned this in school. We had, like, I'm a chiropractor. We have the same training up to a certain point as medical doctors do. And the nocebo effect is part of physiology. How can you know that and then say stuff like that? I don't understand it. And so as a people, we have to literally rebuke certain things that are said over us about our future and about our health. Literally, I don't receive that. I don't receive it. And sometimes out loud. So that's like foot planted, immovable, not going to receive what you just said. And also dictate, they're probably not going to say it again.
And as I understand, doesn't cancer take years?
Right.
So cancer doesn't just happen overnight. It takes years to develop. So 9 times out of 10, when you become symptomatic, from what I understand, your doctor is going to high urgency. You gotta go get cut and do chemo and radiation right now, where actually you have time because it's taken years for it to get to that point. Am I correct?
What is that? I'll speak to that in a second too. But for it to become 800 billion cells strong, for you to then to detect it on even the most sensitive medical equipment, took at least a decade for most cancers. Now we have turbo cancers now that are being accelerated by lots of things, but specifically the shots. But even that doesn't mean that you have to flippantly or urgently run to cut poison and burn. Even in the case of turbo cancers, we've seen those who got the shot, those who got turbo cancers or that cancers that acted like that, be able to slow it down, stop it, and reverse it, even with that which might have been initiated from what might be a bioweapon. We don't know.
I also just want to say briefly, I think there's a notion in the natural health world that, well, I'll just go to the experts in diagnosis to hear what they have to say, then I'll do what I want with it. And the practitioner you choose is very powerful. Like if you want to go get a test, fine, have them send you the test. Don't even go to hear what they have to say about the test, because the prognosis is, in my mind, something that we should correct in medical ethics, that prognoses shouldn't be a part of medical care because the power of words and the power of thoughts. There was a piece of research done on the thoughts of the physician indicating patient outcomes. And this one physician who dealt with rare childhood cancers, his patients had 10% chance of surviving the rare childhood cancer. And when he switched his mind to, my patients are going to be the rare ones, they're going to be the survivors, my patients are going to be the survivors, he got 70% survival instead of 10% survival. It's mind-blowing. So don't just go to doctors because, oh, I'll do what I want with it, but I'll just hear what they have to say, because that's like a very dangerous spot to be in. I think the pastor
Yeah, couple of things. I do want to say that from a purely physical standpoint, as cancers develop, it starts slow, but it's an exponential growth. So when you're dealing with something at a cellular level and it begins multiplying, yes, it takes a long time before it shows up. But by the time it shows up, it's growing rather fast, and especially with these turbo cancers. So it's not, oh, it took 10 years to get here, I may have 10 more years to have to deal with it. It's going right, and I'm exaggerating, but yeah. It is important to recognize that depending on the aggressiveness of that cancer, urgency may be wise. Okay, does that make sense? I also wanted to say, to tap into, we've a number of times mentioned this idea, and I think you did a great job in the book of going into some of this idea of how mentally, how powerful the attitude is. And one of the things that we frequently lose sight of, and I think we've touched on it here, but it probably deserves some more attention, is this holistic idea. As Christians, we know that we consist of a body, a soul, and a spirit. And the medical industry discounts 2 of those 3. And those 2 that are so often discounted are frequently part of the root cause. Okay. And we're not going to get anywhere treating only the body, only the physical side of the human being, and ignoring what's going on there. There's a good chance that root cause can be spiritual, can be psychological, can be emotional, all of those immaterial parts of the human being. And there's also a good possibility, well, if that is the root cause, then it doesn't matter what you do in the physical realm, you're never going to fix the disease, right? And as you highlighted a number of times in the book, fixing the mental aspect or the spiritual aspect, the physical disease resolves by itself. We don't even need to address that, depending on the circumstance. So in my practice, I try very hard to get that holistic view of what's going on in all the different aspects of the client that comes to see me. Now, my tools are fairly limited in what I can do, but I can coach in all of those areas. It gets into, I don't know if many of you guys have read Bruce Lipton's The Biology of Belief, right? A phenomenally eye-opening book about how big a difference the mind has even over the physical body. And we've touched on some of these things. And I think it kind of goes back to your question about how do you deal with this structure, like in a nursing home or what have you, and recognizing that encouraging people, praying with people, doing energy work on people, it's kind of my niche. But there's so many things that we can do to improve an attitude that can even overcome some of the nonsense that's going on that they don't have any control over. I've seen energy work, I've seen changes in attitude, I've seen diet, certainly, overcome the negative side effects of horrendous amounts of medication and things like that. At the very least, to reduce the side effects, the negative side effects. So there's a lot that we can do on an individual basis with those starfish. And I think there's a lot we can do educating, even if we're not directly challenging the Kool-Aid part of, what they're being taught. We can bring in this more holistic stuff. The American Holistic Nurses Association is a big entity, and they have a lot of resources and tools in this area as well. So that's all.
What I find sometimes is that data can create urgency, which then moves into fear. And that is what then gets used to then manipulate. We were talking about the cut, poison, burn aspect of, and when I say that, is everyone familiar with what I'm saying? I know it's chapter 4, but for those of you who didn't get there yet, cut, poison, burn is the idea of chemotherapy, radiation, and then surgery. And mostly the diagnosis, whatever the diagnosis mechanism was to get there, is typically used to say, you've got to do this right now, this. However, the urgency should be of, let's take a step back and urgently look and find out what's the reason why this developed in the first place. What caused the situation, the environment for cancer to be able to thrive? Cancer thrives in a very specific environment, and that's never even recognized, the environment that causes it in the first place. We jump right into the cut, poison, burn without saying, if you go right back into the environment that caused it in the first place, it's just like the Great Lakes and the fish analogy. So the Great Lakes and the fish were all getting sick. If you remember this, Michigan Lake and Lake Erie specifically, when all the fish were washing up onto the shores, no biologist in their right mind would go and see all these fish that are washing up onto the shores with the tumors developing. Do you remember this? No biologist in the right mind would say, you know what we need to do is we need to inject poisons into this fish and then put them right back into that Lake Erie. That no biologist in the right mind. But what happened was the birds would then eat the fish, and and then the birds would have brittle offspring, and the eggs would break prematurely, and then there would be growth developments in the next generation. And oh, by the way, do we not see that right now with our kids, with autism being what it is, and with what we see now with genetic mutations? Well, are the genetic mutations actually happening because of the very thing that we've been doing to try to treat healthcare? No biology, we don't treat animals that way. We don't treat the animal species that way, but that's the scientific method for humans. And then we release them right back in. So we have to say, well, we need to then change the environment that caused it in the first place urgently, which means being introspective, which means being curious, which also means swallowing some humble pie and realizing that maybe the things that I've been doing isn't conducive to healing. Thoughts, traumas, toxins, even mentally, the thoughts that I think, the things that I allow, the things that have been spoken over me that I continue to repeat, those types of things, urgently, with urgency.
I'm good.
Hi. For my company, we treat prostate cancer with Sound. We're here in Indianapolis. And so I know one of the things they're trying to do is get into more of the education system, make doctors aware that that's available. But we do get a lot of pushback because the doctors, they have a path and they get paid well for that path, and the pharma's coming in throwing money at them. And we come in and say, well, you don't need any pharmaceuticals. The guy can go play golf the next day with nothing wrong with him. Like he's done. And so there's a lot of pushback. Even if the doctors know, but the way they're doing it is longer and rougher for the patient. They get more money. They still get the outcome. Supposedly the guy's fixed, but they get more return on that procedure. Whether it's just 4 hours, the guy's done, they never see him again. So that's something that we deal with quite a bit.
Sorry, treat it with sound. Oh, sound, yeah. So I've got a high school buddy who is in pharmaceutical sales, and who we've lost contact for obvious reasons over the years. And but occasionally this person will, and he's followed me, he's listened to me, and he's read my stuff over the years. And occasionally this person will, at like 1 a.m., send me a voice message, like on a 1 a.m. on a Friday night. So you get the picture. He's drunk, and send me a voice message and say, "You're right. Yeah, it's blood money. I can't take it anymore, but man, I got a family to feed. But I just wanted you to know that you're right, and the system sucks, and there's a lot of corruption in it, and I'm thinking about it, man. I love you." That's it. It's like, and it's like once every 3 years, I'll get this message from him, and I'm like, dude, you're still doing this? Like, I thought this, this moment of clarity, would have produced a different outcome for you. But there's a lot of people who know what they're doing. Yeah.
But it's the whole, and obviously there's ways that we need to clean up corrupt things so that they serve society, but there's also making those systems irrelevant, or reducing their relevance to their original scope, which is emergency, when you have a severed limb or when you do have a heart attack. Like I don't find a lot of excitement in medical schools now teaching nutrition, because they're still going to use it with the reductionist allopathic approach. They're still going to also give you the medicine. Do you think they're actually going to make that a primary indicator of healing? No. So now the medical doctors who prescribe drugs are an authority on nutrition. No, don't go to them for nutrition advice. Like, just go to someone who actually cares about food for nutrition advice. So that's all, that this whole paradigm shift we're wrestling with in our own lives and as a culture is returning medicine to its initial scope. And a lot of the medicine is what's done in the home. It's mom, it's grandma, it's neighbors, community. I mean, we got to be villagers again. And trying to replace our village with medicine isn't serving us very well. So yeah, and I know we've come up against time, but I hope that the book was helpful. I heard Karen say, when's the next class? It's next year. And Nick and I experienced that same thing. That's how we function, is we do heart health in a certain year. We do, we have a cycle of education, and we wanted to have a resource that would allow people to have an onboarding at their own pace and to get the paradigm shift in a way that they don't constantly have to be dependent on someone else to come to us and be like, well, what about this? Now this, now that, now this, now that. But to teach an infrastructure that we can be confident in functioning within, to take people's legs from wobbly and dependent to sturdy and confident is really what our heart is. And so we have more books here today. If you don't have one yet, we'd love to help you get one. If you want to buy a few more to give to people that you want to know this, we have those available. And we're here as a resource to help you all in any way that we can. Restructured Chiropractic, we serve lots of families from different backgrounds. And someone said something about wellness being for the elite or the rich, and that's absolutely not true. I mean, come in here on a Monday morning, a Wednesday afternoon after the kids get out of school, and there's mom in here with her 6 children, all getting adjusted, taking care of their nervous systems, and they're not wearing Louis Vuitton or driving Mercedes. Like, they're in the minivan, and their kids haven't brushed their hair in 2 weeks because that's how we function as moms sometimes. You know what I mean? So it's like, these are real people that are pursuing health and valuing health and prioritizing it. And we just hope that however we can to help our community and help families, that we can be that for them. So anything else?
Could I ask you guys to kind of describe what you do here? I'll give it right back to you. But just, clearly, so I'm asking Nick to describe what they do here at the clinic when a new patient comes in. Kind of what's the holistic approach, what's broader about your approach to this, given what we've all just read in your book, as opposed to the normal chiropractic model.
Back on that and ask you.
Hold that one.
From a spiritual or biblical standpoint, how does that form a difference in what you do and how you've done your research and what you believe about the human body in relation to your biblical or your faith?
Well, let me start with chapter 1. I'll tell you that the hardest chapter, Leah mentioned chapter 4, which is...
No, it's 6. Cancer is 6.
No, it's 4. No, you're right. Vaccines, you're right. I should have not said that. You're right. For me, it was 23, which is if you'll hear this in the audiobook when you get there. It's one that you mentioned earlier. It's the wrap up of... it's because it's the wrap up, but it was also the empowerment to go forward. And we were thinking about the people that have lived and attempted to live this life, but it was too late, right? And the people that we've lost. But it's not about wins and losses in that sense. It's who you become in the process. And it's a weird way to transition into your question, but I'm thinking about that right now because of what you just said, Stephanie, of how does my faith or worldview dictate care? And here's how it dictates care. Here's how it influences care is the starting place. The starting place is that I know the body can heal, and I'm partnering with you. I say me and my doctor team, we have 5 other doctors, and we have a functional health practitioner who used to have a history in the hospital setting. Somebody mentioned hospital setting as a dietitian. That's what she did. And then she stepped out and started working with women's hormones and fertility and their fertility journey. And she started seeing them get pregnant again. And she started seeing the dads, oftentimes it's the dad, embrace it. And She's like, I'm not treating fertility. I'm helping people to express vitality from the inside out, and they're just happen to get pregnant. And I was like, you fit so well here. So come on board. And so when somebody comes in, that's the starting place, is your body's designed to heal. God put the most amazing healing power inside of your brain and spinal cord. It controls everything, for your heart to beat, lungs to breathe, cuts to heal, hormones to work, for a baby to grow. Everything starts in your brain and spinal cord. And that's why there's so much like the nervous system talk in the book, is because if we don't start there at the nervous system and look at what's interfering with the nervous system's ability to heal, function, and repair, we're going to start chasing the gut, or we're going to start chasing hormones. And again, it's even in the natural health space, we end up playing whack-a-mole if we don't help to restore and optimize the nervous system. We know this just in general. We say, Jerry's over there and he's all stressed out, and we say, Jerry, calm down. You're going to give yourself an ulcer. And why? Because we innately know that his stress on the nervous system is going to make him sick. Do we not? And so we innately know that, yet we act like it's non-existent in our health journey. It's primary in our health journey. And so what we do here is we start with that. We do scans of the nervous system. Oftentimes structure dictates function within the nervous system. So the spine itself, when it shifts, it's going to cause stress. Stephanie, we talked about that in the nervous system, and that can cause all kinds of symptoms in the body. And we've got to listen to the body and what it's actually saying, because those symptoms that we have are just like check engine light indicators that go off on our dashboard in our cars. And we treat our cars so much better than we do our bodies sometimes, because we see that and we're like, oh, I've got to take this car into somewhere to find out what's going on here.
Because I want it to work for me.
Yeah, it's going to break down the interstate.
On it.
And yet, what do we do with our symptoms, though? Those check engine lights go off in the form of headaches or symptoms or shoulder pain or sciatica, or our hormones are a wreck. And we look to peptides to treat them. Or we look to just, because I'm saying that here because you guys don't take drugs, I imagine, mostly. Like we're not treating with pharmaceuticals here in this group, likely. But we sometimes jump to the next biohack to do so without taking a step back and saying, what's actually causing the stress on my system right now? And let's take a real root cause approach, which is I feel like that term has been hijacked by, I keep going back to McKinsey. Yeah, that term has been hijacked by the functional medical community. There are great people in the functional medical community. They're dear friends of mine. There's great practitioners within that, but in general, as a whole, it's been hijacked. Root cause medicine is not doing $5,000 of testing in order for you just to get a foot in the door. That's not root cause medicine. That's data analytics. Root cause medicine is taking a step back and saying, what's the root cause of interference? What's interfering with my body's ability to heal, function, repair on its own? And that is all governed by the nervous system. So we look at the nervous system first and foremost, look at structure. How is that dictating that? Spine itself, there's 24 individual movable bones, and it's not, chiropractic. Unfortunately, when insurance got introduced into chiropractic, it swept it up just like it did the medical community. And so there are different ways of practicing chiropractic, and the insurance-driven or symptom-driven chiropractic is not chiropractic. It's not. It's that is allopathic care, just with an adjustment. We have to go back and say, what's actually interfering? Where's the sources of that? Measure that down to the millimeter, because data and analytics is useful so that we can know precisely what to do, exactly what to do to get the pressure off the system to help restore it to balance. And that's what we do day in and day out. That's what I'm proud now that the functional health component of that, then we look at, okay, there's 3 causes: thoughts, traumas, and toxins of interference. The toxicity component plays such a role in that subluxation complex, or that misalignment and inflammation that then forms. And so we have to look at the other areas that are contributing to the problem to ensure that it's a wraparound or holistic approach to make sure your body's functioning and healing at its best. But it's all back to the nervous system. The only reason we talk about nutrients and we talk about, supplements have their place. The reason why we talk about those things is because of its impact on the nervous system. Does that answer your question, Tim? Okay. Awesome. I appreciate this group. This has been fun. There's very rarely that I can sit in a room and have like a fireside chat like this. And I feel like I'm in good company, like I feel like I'm in good company with you all. So I appreciate you all reading our book. and what you guys have said so often, or the comments that you've made, even today, about your experience in the book. So we're here as a resource for you, local in Indianapolis, and really do appreciate you guys being here. Thank you.
Can we get a group picture to end book club for the season? Okay.
All right, let's get a group picture. I can take it.